So, my last video, which I made just 2 days ago, has already become kind of redundant because instead of it being that EVPN might be released soon, it's now, hey, EVPN has been released on RouterOS version 7, specifically the new beta build for version 7.20, where we can actually start playing around with EVPN. The interesting thing is it's all still being hidden behind the CLI, similar to what they did with ISIS, but I'm nonetheless so excited and happy to see that it's finally here. I do stress that you should only use this in a labbed up environment. Do not try and deploy this new build in your production network because it's going to bring you so many heartaches and woes in its current state. But it's quite nice to see what EVPN can bring to the table. This video is also not going to specifically just jump into the nuances of EVPN and what it is in every sense. It's just going to be a kind of a dumbed down version that I just want you to think of EVPN as the more modern way of deploying MPLS services across the network, something that we can use to span VRFs between our provider edges, or to even do stuff like layer 2 VPN tunnels. Well, I shouldn't say tunnels really, but like a pseudo wire where we can effectively provide customers with this direct layer 2 connectivity, where it's like they've got this one long cable just directly connected between their two devices. But it's so cool to see this actually happen and work in real time. So let me just walk you through what I actually saw today, because it blows my mind that I was able to catch this all kind of happen in real time almost. Because I was just kind of going through the MikroTik forums and then I saw, hey, there's a new post update and it seems like version 7.20 beta has released. And my eyes immediately locked onto the biggest change that I could see, because it's so obvious. Hey, what is this? Initial EVPN support. But I don't want to take away from the rest of the fixes that MikroTik is implementing. I shouldn't even say fixes, it's just added functionality and the betterment of RouterOS version 7. You can see this is actually a massive change log. They're doing a lot of container work, lots of DHCP work, disk work, IoT work, IP work, net install stuff is happening. Lots of different things are happening with this new version. So this is definitely a big upgrade, and I think it is worthy of being called a next jump, like next generation almost. You know, you've got like your 0, 10, 20. So 20 kind of is like a big jump for us, and in this case it really is. We've even got more cores to support on our ARM64, 128 cores. That's crazy. But for me, the craziest part is still this EVPN support. So I am super excited to show you just briefly what it can do. We will be running this through a lab itself inside EVNG, and I will be using the MikroTik documentation that they did have posted before to actually set this up. But I will be showing you kind of the whole setup, where I will also just configure a MPLS network, so to speak, and then we can leverage that EVPN configuration off of it. If you're not interested for that part of the configuration, you can just skip to the EVPN portion. I will have some references or links to that inside the timestamps, but that's just for your own information. If you're interested in getting the new build, it's as easy as going to mikrotik.com/download, or just go into mikrotik.com, click on the software button, and then if you scroll down, for me personally, I would just do a CHR, a cloud hosted router, which you can load up to any hypervisor or on EVNG, like what I'm using, and download the raw disk image, and then just load it up and start playing around. It's really that easy and simple. If I look, you can also get this for the physical equipment. So if you've maybe got a physical lab that you want to test this on, by all means, go for it. Just don't just deploy it haphazardly on a production network, because you can potentially break things. And even if you try and roll back, you might have more issues, because there are some new changes to how we configure BGP. It's kind of like, you can see they say introduced BGP instance configuration. Note, downgrading to earlier versions without instance support may cause config issues, which is weird because we used to have instance support with RouterOS version 6. It was always a thing, and then it kind of went away with RouterOS version 7 came out, and it just became a part of this connections stuff that you just configure in there. You just the instance is just there. You set your AS inside the connection itself. Whereas now they've added the instance option, and inside the instance we can now set our AS values and all that kind of stuff. But you'll see when we get to that configuration. The point that I wanted to make is if you upgrade to this new build on a production device and you try and downgrade back to the previous version, because the previous version doesn't have that instance support, if you're going back to 7.19.1 or something, for example, then you're going to have a bad time. Then you need to reconfigure your stuff manually. I happened to see that happen in real time as well, as I saw a user who was at Wisp MikroTik was complaining about this, that they were setting this up on this L009. They noticed that BGP stopped working, and the BGP stopped working because they didn't have an instance configured. So it's kind of something that you could figure out on the fly. But they also noticed some other issues, like their IPsec stopped working, and then when they tried to roll back, it didn't work. So they had to physically reconfigure that stuff. So just kind of that disclaimer, be careful when you mess with this stuff. Do it in a lab so that you're not in any danger of causing any issues. Now the fun part. Now we can actually talk about the lab and configure it. Now this is actually a very basic setup that we're doing here. There's no route reflector, there's no additional services, where we will have two provider edges, because how fun would it be to just have a single provider edge where everything terminated onto? This way you can kind of see what it does when the traffic passes through the network, and we've got a single provider node, which is kind of just like our core device that the provider edges connect onto. It's kind of a very basic small type of ISP network. You could obviously scale this up and make it like more cores and more provider edges and stuff, but this is just the gist of it. Now, one thing I'm not using is a route reflector. So that is with reason, because I know that version 7 itself has some issues with route reflectors, and I haven't had a chance to properly test it out with this EVPN lab yet, since this stuff literally just dropped for me today. So I have to just get the news out to you guys along so that you can see what the impact of this is. All right, so let's see if I can get the EVPN working without looking at the documentation too much. But the main point, if we just go to the documentation quickly, is we need to set up a bridge. We need to enable VLAN filtering on the bridge. We need to assign the port that's going to the customer equipment to a PVID. We need to add a VXLAN interface with that PVID on that port, with the local address being the loopback interface IP, and a VNI. So VNI, just think of that kind of as the site ID. This is kind of something that just matches for the service. And it doesn't have to be that also. You could make that something unique, something that makes sense for you. And then lastly, we've got our BGP configuration. Now, again, this is where MikroTik has reintroduced the BGP instance concept. Then we've got our BGP connection. And the important bit here is to note that we have a address family of EVPN now. So additional address family has been added. That's the cool bit that we wanted to know. And then lastly, there is a routing BGP EVPN configuration section. So here we can add our export route targets, import route targets, our instance, which is going to be the routing instance, and then the name of the name I think could be whatever we want it to be as well, and then what that VNI is. And we can see it's just the same. That's what's inside this VXLAN configuration. So this is a fairly straightforward and simple setup. Let's see how quickly we can get it done on our equipment. Again, one thing I just want to stress is this can only happen from the command line. Unfortunately, it does not work with Winbox. Winbox doesn't even see the EVPN configuration bits. If I go onto Winbox and I go to routing BGP, there's no EVPN here. And if we go into the connections and we add a connection, the address family is not here either. So unfortunately, this you need to do from the command line. All right, so let's jump onto provider edge 1 to just quickly configure it. So if I go, first things first is I just need to set my bridge, which is interface bridge add. I'll just give it the name of bridge 1, and then we can set VLAN filtering yes. Next step is interface bridge port. Then we'll add our interface that's going to the customer equipment into this bridge, which in our case is Ether 12, and it's Ether 12 on both ends, so it's nice and easy for me to remember. So let's just go interface equals Ether 12. Our bridge is going to be bridge 1. Then I can set the PVID to 40, which is what MikroTik was using, but I could make that whatever my requirement is. I can make it 10, 5, 18, whatever it was. But I'm just following along with what the documentation was. And then lastly, is there anything else I need to add? Looks okay. Let's just compare it to the MikroTik configuration quickly. So if I jump back here, we've got a interface bridge port, just our bridge, just our interface, just our PVID. All right, so I'm not too stressed with the configuration, with the bridge port side at least. Next up, we need to configure the VXLAN interface. So I'll add a VXLAN interface, and then I'll add VXLAN. And then for this, I can set a few things. The main point that I want to set is firstly the bridge, and that should be bridge 1. Then my bridge PVID, which is the PVID on that bridge port, which was 40. Then I can set my local address, which is the loopback interface IP. Think of this as the thing that's initiating the configuration or the connection. So 172.31.255.254. And let's see, is there anything else I want to add? The VNI, like that's very important. So VNI on MikroTik example was 1040, or more specifically like 100,040. So that's fine. But again, that's something that's unique. You can make that whatever you wanted to make it. Or I can make it 140 or 1040 or whatever. But let's stick with the configuration example. So 1040. And I can set a name as well. This might be cust to EVPN. And then I can hit enter. So now I've got a VXLAN interface. So next step would actually be to configure the BGP stuff. So to do this, firstly we need to do routing. And then inside BGP, I can set an instance now. So routing BGP instance. We can add the instance and I can give this a name. Maybe we can make this EVPN instance, like that. And then I can also set a autonomous system number. So for this is going to be 65000. That'll be my AS. I can hit enter, and now this AS will now basically be used. Well, it's my AS. It's 65000 will be used inside the whole network, but it's just 2 devices in our topology that's actually using that configuration. So back on PE1, we've got our instance configured. Let's configure the BGP connection. So we actually get a BGP session running. So routing, BGP connection add. Now, a few things that we need to set. Firstly, for me, kind of importantly, is this new address family that we've got, which is EVPN. Then we need to set maybe a name. So I could call this PE1 to PE2. Then I can set I could set the AS as well, I see. But I'm pretty sure it should fill it in from whatever's in the instance. I can set my local dot address, and that I'm going to make 172.31.255.254. Then my local dot role is going to be iBGP in my instance, although MikroTik does use eBGP, so they just have 2 different autonomous systems in that case. And there's nothing else that I need on my local settings. I just need to set my remote settings. So my remote address, that is going to be PE2's loopback interface IP, the thing that I'm establishing the VPN connection to, or the BGP connection to. So that is going to be 172.31.255.253. This is going to be multi-hop since I do have that middle core device. And then my remote AS is also going to be 65000. And I'm not going to set any local ports Although I can specify my instance as the EVPN-instance. And that's also new. Like, you need to specify the instance inside the connection now. Even though it kind of used to be that way in V6 again. I don't know why I harp on about it, but it's just, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Yeah. So let's go. I could set this to listen, yes, connect, yes, as well. Just force these connections. And I'm pretty sure that is the gist of it. So let's hit enter. And let me see here with the BGP connection, we've got an address family, we've got an instance, we've got the local address, role, multi-hop, remote address, remote AS. Yeah, we're pretty good. That is exactly what we wanted to see. So before I do the EVPN section, I just want to finish off the BGP configuration. So I'm just going to jump onto the PE2 as well. And we're going to basically be doing the same config. So all that I'm going to do is firstly add the bridge. So interface bridge add. I'm pretty sure it makes a bridge 1 by default. Then I can add a VLAN filtering yes. Then next up is add an interface bridge port. And then we'll add this. Our interface was Ether 12. Our PVID was 40. Our bridge was bridge 1. And is there anything else I wanted to set? Not that I can think of. And then we can do an interface, a VXLAN add. Then we can add our bridge as bridge 1. Our bridge PVID is 40. Our VNI is 1004040. Then our local address is 172.31.255.253. And is there anything else I want to set? Set the name maybe again. I think I made it cust2-EVPN. And that should be it for the VXLAN interface. Then next up is our BGP configuration. So routing, BGP instance add, name, EVPN ins, and our AS is 65000. Then routing, BGP connection, add our connection. So again, just a few things. Remote AS is going to be 65000. Remote address is the loopback interface of PE1, which is 172.31.255.254. Our local role is going to be IBGP. Our local address is going to be the loopback address of PE2, so 255.253. Our AFI is going to be EVPN. Name is going to be PE2 to PE1. Our instance is the EVPN instance. And is there anything additional that we want? Maybe let's just set the AS for good measure again, although I'm really confident that it pulls it off of the instance. And let's set our connect, yes, listen, yes. So at a baseline, I should at least see that the BGP connects. So routing BGP session print. And I got some good news. I can see that we do have an established BGP session between our two nodes. So that is good news. That is really, really, really good news. Now we can actually continue with the last step, which is the EVPN BGP side of the configuration. So let's finish this up by actually adding the BGP configuration on our provider edges for EVPN. So if we do a routing, and this is on PE1 now, routing BGP EVPN, now I can do something like add a new EVPN instance. And this is very important. So there's just a few things that we really can fill in here at the moment. But the first thing is I could give it a name like cust2-EVPN. I can set my export and import route targets. So export route targets, I might make something like 65000 10040, which is that VNI, although it doesn't need to match with the VNI. This is just a route target. So export route targets is that, import route targets is going to be exactly the same in our instance. So 65.0.0.1.0.0.0.40. And then I just need to set my instance, which is the EVPN instance. And I need to set my VNI for this layer 2 connectivity, which was 1.0.0.0.40. We're not using a VRF, and again, route distinguisher can only be set for stuff that's using multiple VLANs or for layer 3 VPN stuff, but unfortunately, route distinguisher does not set at the moment. I've tried setting it, it just doesn't work. So if I go routing, actually there's nothing more that I need to do now. I need to just set the routing BGP EVPN on the PE2 as well. So let's quickly do that. Go on to PE2. So routing BGP EVPN, we'll add EVPN. Name will be cus2-EVPN. Instance will be the EVPN instance. Our VNI is 1.0.0.0.4T. Then our import route targets 65.0.0.1.0.0.40, and our export route targets is exactly the same. So 65.0.0.1.0.0.40. And if I apply that, I'm pretty sure there's nothing else to be adding. That should be it. That should really be it. Now, here I see the device kind of crashed, but I've had this happen inside the lab earlier as well. So after it boots up with everything working. I think this is just kind of a byproduct of EVPN in its current state. So let me just stop these nodes as well. But the moment they've started up again, then we should ideally see that EVPN is working. So again, this is why this is volatile. Please don't just add stuff on your production network, because that was a very clear indication that stuff can just break. There is a MikroTik. There's my PE2. So let's connect. So if I look at my BGP, I should have a session that comes up. You can just see what the other end is doing quickly. My PE1, admin blank, routing, BGP session. Let's print that. Okay, session is actually established. Let's go back into Winbox and just see if it shows that it is up and running or not. So let's just refresh that. All right. So it just took a little bit of time to get everything back up and running. So now the question is everything actually working? So if I look at my PE1 device and I log back in, if I look at my routing routes and I print this, this is where you can kind of see some of that EVPN magic. Before I continue, let's just jump onto one of the customer edges. And if I do a IP neighbor print, so I can actually see the MAC address for the remote MikroTik, which is CE2, which is this 00060000. So we can quickly verify that by just quickly updating the identity on this MikroTik. So password blank. So let's just do a system identity set name CE2. And then from CE1, let's just print that neighbor again. There we go. We see it's updated to CE2. And I could maybe do something like a ping the MAC address. So I can do a MAC ping. This is actually wonderful. This is actually wonderful. If I do a MAC tool MAC telnet, it's MAC telnet to that IP with admin blank. It's connected. I'm on CE2. So we've got layer 2 connectivity from CE1 to CE2. I'm just curious to have a look at the route table on PE1 again. So if we do a routing route print, there we go. That's actually what I wanted to see. So here we are learning the remote MAC address as well. from EVPN. And if we just print this as a detail, and I'll just go down to those routes, we can get a little bit more information. We can see what the encapsulation is, what the route targets were, where it belongs, all that good stuff that we actually want to see. And it is all here. We've got active routes for this. So I am fairly happy with what I'm seeing here. And again, this is pretty much very, very new on MikroTik. So there's bound to be a lot of learning curves for us, myself included. But I am super excited to be able to see this finally coming to MikroTik. This means so much for us, guys. So yeah, with that, I'm going to wrap off this video. I will share the configurations either to Pastebin or somewhere for you guys to just grab it and apply it to your own labs if you so choose. But it's definitely really, really interesting. If you like EVPN or you think it has a future, please discuss it in the comments. Are there other things you'd like to see MikroTik bring out as well? I'd also love to hear you talk about that. I just like playing with this stuff, and I think we are in for a treat in the future. So I can't wait to see what future updates bring. Hopefully they do bring it to Winbox, and hopefully they bring ISIS to Winbox as well, because that's still a sore feature that I feel has kind of just been left to the wayside. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. See you very, very soon.